All right, everybody, it's Andy. We're here with the my side of the fence, and I'm here with a buddy of mine, Kenny Loveless, who has been in Manassas. How long have you been in Manassas?
Over 50 years.
You're a newcomer.
I'm a newcomer. Exactly.
That's what I wrote up on Sarah Brush's interview page.
Yes.
Look, if you've not been here at least 20 years, you probably can't find your way around it.
I have a cute story to tell you about a 50-year stay here too. Not to jump out of order here a little bit, but I don't want to forget this story because it's so great. But there was George Hill that you probably remember. He ran the hardware store here for years and years and years. He was a Yankee that had come south, married a local girl here, and ended up in the hardware business. I think it might have been his father-in-law that started the original store. But he had been here for 50 years.
Wow.
George was a good Rotarian. He was a good gentleman. He ran a good business. And I will never forget, he loved to tell the story. He walked up to Marvin Gillen. And he walked up to Marvin and he says, "Marvin, I've been here in the city for 50 years now. Can I call myself a Manassasan?" And for any of you that didn't know Marvin was the perfect Southern gentleman. Marvin looks at him so carefully and pats him on the shoulder, and he goes, "George, almost." I will never forget that. So when I hit my 50-year mark, I thought, okay, maybe I can call myself a Manassas.
I'm getting there.
Yeah, I'm getting there. So, but yeah, a little bit about myself. I was raised right across the river in Montgomery County, out in the rural part of Montgomery County. So a lot of people think about Silver Spring or Bethesda.
Right. I
was out in the country. Anybody heard of Olney Theater? I was raised about a mile from Olney Theater, back down a long country lane. We had a wonderful childhood. I'm one of 7 children.
Wow.
There's 10 years span between the oldest and the youngest. So Mom and Dad were busy. And I have to tell you, Mom and Dad were just wonderful folks. You know, the work ethic, they just took care of family, I never remember my dad not going to work.
Right.
Just that kind of guy.
What did he do?
He worked for the telephone company. Actually, had a great job. George, last 10, 15 years of his career, he took care of all the communications at the White House.
Oh, wow.
So he had the best job. He can remember back to Johnson and Ford, and I think he caught just the tail end of Kennedy.
Yeah.
And then, and Johnson loved to talk on the phone. Oh. So Johnson, if you've ever caught any of his old tapes, he had telephones everywhere. He had telephones hidden behind the curtains. He had telephones in the bathroom. He had special telephone in his coffee table.
I would tune into NPR Sunday afternoons just to listen to those.
Just to listen to those.
And it was almost always the same. You know, it was someone, and then, you know, he was always finished. Well, you tell that son of a bitch that I'm going to.
Exactly. We got to talk. Yes.
Right.
Yep. But he was, he had a great job. He loved it. He got to meet all the bigwigs at that time.
That's cool.
So just a good career. But he had a great work ethic. I grew up in what I called a divided household. How was it divided? Well, Dad was a staunch Catholic, and Mom was a Methodist.
Yeah.
And in today's world, we don't think of that as a big deal. But when they got married, that was a big deal. My grandfather, my mom's dad, would not go to the wedding because his daughter was marrying a Catholic. So if you can imagine, you know, and that wasn't that many years ago in the scheme of things, but that's how. Now all worked out great. But I do know my mom, who was a woman of few words. Usually her motto was, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Yeah.
I wish I could say I live up to that. I don't do as good a job. but she does say to my dad after the 7th child in 10 years, she says, "Frankly, Bill, I don't give a damn what the Pope thinks." and that was the end of it. So 7 kids, but we're all still very close to this day.
Is that right?
We're very blessed.
Well, I mean, it helps that you're all pretty close in age.
It helps that we're close in age, and we do a group text, and there's not a week that goes by that we're not sharing pictures of grandkids or pictures of where we're traveling or something. So it's great, and we're spread from Florida to Maryland still. So just a really great life. I was so fortunate as a teenager. I worked with a couple people that I want to say today we would call mentors.
Right.
I'm sure they didn't think of themselves as mentors at the time, but they really, I want to say, set the path for me, that I knew at a very young age I wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
I wanted to work for myself. One of the gentlemen, great guy, he was a Mexican fellow, had come up, had started a little trinket Mexican bean shop kind of thing where he sold Mexican knickknacks and all that kind of stuff. But I never forgot. He told me, he said, Kenny, you've only got X number of hours in a day that you can work. So he goes, do you want to be the beneficiary of your labor, or do you want to split it and share it with somebody else?
Yeah.
Totally made sense to me. So I said, you know what? Whatever I do, I'm going to do it for myself. So went on from there. But got to Manassas. I was offered a job. So this was before I started out on any kind of an entrepreneurial tour. Was offered a job to come to Manassas back in 74.
Mm-hmm.
Was working with what was my best friend and my business partner for years, Rob Fisher. Rob is still here local. He'd be a great guy to interview as well.
He would be.
Yeah. Rob is, and he's funny. Oh my God, he's funny. He'll keep you laughing. But his dad, for a short time, had the Lincoln Mercury dealership here in Manassas. And so he offered us jobs to come down and go to work. And I remember coming into Manassas the first time, it was like, holy cow, we're in the world.
It's the middle of nowhere.
It was so small, Andy, I will never forget. We drove in. Of course, 66 was barely anything was out there. So it was 11 miles from the Beltway to Route 28. We get on 2-lane Route 28.
Yeah.
We're coming into Manassas. We slow down. We drive past the dealership. I'm assuming we probably went as far south as about Nokesville, turned around, came back, slowed down again, never stopped. We just wanted to scope out the dealership and back up the road we go. So a couple of weeks later, we're coming down. Now we're going to work full time. And one of the guys that worked at the dealership, he says, you guys were in town here a couple of weeks ago, weren't you? I recognized your car, and I thought, holy cow, are we in a little town or what? But I love Manassas. I've always loved Manassas. I love, especially as I got older and did start to work for myself, I started to recognize how great it was that you knew the mayor. You knew the council.
Yeah.
You knew the inspectors. You knew everybody.
Yeah.
And by comparison, when you even looked at the county or you looked at any of the larger areas, it was like, wow, this is a real blessing that we have, and it's worth fighting for, and it's worth hope.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, I hope we can keep it. I'm sure Prince William County would love to gobble us up sometimes, but we sure want to try to protect it. But lived in first apartment, lived in Deer Park Apartments. For those of you that are familiar, they were owned by the Breeden family.
Yep.
And the gentleman, I.J. Breeden, I don't know if you ever had a chance to meet him or get to know him.
I mean, when I was pretty young, I think.
Oh, my goodness. What a gentleman. He was, I feel so fortunate in hindsight looking back. It was typical for me, Saturday afternoons in the bottom of the apartments, there was one laundromat.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have laundry in your apartment.
Right.
But they were nice big apartments. And so typical for me, Saturday afternoons, I'd be down doing my laundry after finishing work for the day. And invariably, IJ would be walking through, stopping at all the laundromats within the complex, getting the change, getting the quarters and the dimes.
Right.
And his pocket would be as swollen, it would just be bulging with these quarters and dimes. But he always took time to stop and talk and chat, and he would share stories about him first coming to Manassas. And shucks, I think he owned everything on 28 from the bridge in Fairfax County. He owned the whole works coming in, but just as humble and just as nice. I look back with fond memories there. But then ended up bought a townhouse in Point of Woods, lived there for quite a while, and then thought, okay, I'm ready for a single family house, getting a little bit older. And looked around, wasn't finding exactly what I wanted. And then Rob kept bugging me. He said, Kenny, there's a house for sale over in our neighborhood. He said, you need to come look. I said, Rob, I've got my townhouse. I'm happy. No, he says, I want you to come look at it. So Saturday afternoon, I get off work, I jump on my bicycle. I said, well, it doesn't hurt. I'll ride or I'll pedal over there.
Right.
And I'm driving around this house, and I go, holy cow, this is a beautiful house. I'd buy this house if I could afford it. So I go up, and I knock on the door, and a nice gentleman, Mr. Brown, comes to the door, and he goes, can I help you? And he's looking in the driveway. He can't see a car. I said, well, I apologize. I rode up on a bike. I said, I'm interested in looking at your house. He had a little tiny for sale by owner sign down in the front yard. So he says, well, sure, let me show you around. So 30 minutes later, we've taken a tour of the house. The yard was immaculate. In fact, don't ever buy a house that somebody takes that good a care of, because you can never live up to the same, the same hype. But I said, Mr. Brown, I want to buy this house. I said, I've got $20 in my pocket. Would you take a $20 deposit on this house? And he says, if you're serious, yes, I'll take it. And I handed him the $20 bill that I had. We shook hands, and a couple of weeks later, we finished up the deal.
Wow.
But those were beautiful days when you lived on a handshake. And that's just the way things were done in Manassas. We, about that time, Rob and I had our business going. We had established a pretty good deal. We got quite fortunate. We had started, although we had come here in 74, in 76, we had left Rob's dad and struck out on our own.
Was that Northside?
This was just prior to Northside. So what happened is we bought a little pickup truck, a little Toyota pickup truck, and we turned it into a work truck. And we were going around to different dealerships. We would do reconditioning. So we would clean their cars. We could put vinyl tops. We could do body side moldings.
Wow.
We had just like a little accessories business. Right. And so that was going real well. Well, we got to doing work for this fella that had Northside at that time. And he says, I love you guys. He goes, every time you touch one of my cars, I put it back on the lot. Within 24 hours, it's sold. He goes, let's merge our businesses. So we really got quite a lucky break.
Was it called Northside at that time?
It was called Northside. And interesting, the gentleman, a real nice guy named Bob Gass, he was from Boise, or actually just outside of Boise, a little town called Meridian, Idaho. And he had come out here because his wife had come to work for Cecil Andrews, who was Department of the Interior for Jimmy Carter.
Okay.
Well, if any of you that have traveled in the Midwest in this country, everything is laid out perfectly on a north, south, east, west grid. So it was only natural when he started the business there that he named it Northside, because he felt like, okay, I'm on the north side of town. I'm name it Northside.
Right,
so,
I get it.
So that's where the name came from. But he allowed Rob and I to merge in with him. About 6 months later, he decided he wanted to go back to Idaho and milk cows. Or I said milk cows. He actually had a business where they sold milking equipment, which was a big deal in Idaho. But we took it from there and just ran with it. And then that was about 78. We did that. And then, of course, I hear you often talk about the fun times of 1980 when the economy started to turn down. Well, I can remember. Do you remember the gas crisis, Andy?
Not real sharp, but I remember waiting in line.
Oh, holy cow! I will never forget. Scared to death. We go into work one Saturday. There was one gas station on Route 28 that was open, and it would have been up like across the street from where Donnie Wine has the Why Not Stop gas station there. There was one directly across the street. It was a Redhead gas station.
Okay.
It was the only one that was open that Saturday. The line to get into that gas station was so long, it came down and blocked the driveway. You know, it was half a mile down the street. So even if somebody wanted to come in shopping for a car, they couldn't even get in.
No.
I'm thinking, I think we sold 7 cars that month. It was like, I thought, we can't handle this for long. This is not going to work. But fortunately, we had low overhead. We squeaked our way through those early tough years, and I think we definitely had a loan from Rob's wife Dale. We had a loan from my dad. We had people weren't propping us up, but it kept us going, and one thing led to another. We had a great career there. So I sold my interest out in Northside about a dozen years ago now.
Yeah.
And then wasn't too long after that. I thought, retirement's sort of nice until it wasn't. It got boring pretty quick. And so I was very, very fortunate to had a guy that was bugging me to get into the custom clothing business. And when I finally started to look at it seriously, I said, well, if I'm going to do that, I need to get together with somebody that knows how to alter clothing.
Right.
So I started talking to Xiao Yin. And
how'd you meet her?
Well, I through Rotary.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. She had joined the Rotary Club. And so I told her what I was thinking of doing. And she jokes to this day. She looked at me and she said, "You don't have what it takes." And I said,
I can imagine her saying it, right?
I said, "Thanks for the vote of confidence." But I said, "Well, here's the deal. Let me come in," because that's the hardest working girl.
Oh, you won't get any argument out of me.
She doesn't know when to say no. She'll just go until she drops. She works so many crazy hours a day. I said, why don't you let me join you and see if I can bring in some kind of a retail component? I said, because you can't do what you're doing for much longer. You're working way too hard. I said, so let me. She doesn't like it when I say, let's figure out how to work smarter, not harder. She takes that, I think, is a little bit of a personal insult. but it all works out. So she said, I said, you don't have to pay me. I said, let me just work here, see if I like the business, see what I can do. One thing led to another, and that's what sort of propelled us into the bridal sales world.
So when you left Northside, you were retiring. That was it.
That was it. I really thought, you know what? I'm just going to go travel, and I'm just going to just enjoy life and just take things easy. And it just wasn't for me. And is a
car business tough business?
Yeah, someone asked me that the other day, and I would say when the car business is bad, it's good, and when it's good, it's real good.
Yeah.
But what makes it tough? And Rob might tell you a different story, but what I found so frustrating was regulation.
Yeah.
It was just there was always another regulatory body. So you found yourself I love dealing with people. I love the product. I love cars. It's not nuclear science.
Yeah.
Treat people like you want to be treated yourself.
Yeah.
Mechanics used to ask me, what should I do with this car? I say, well, pretend like it's your mom's car.
That's good advice.
Yeah. What would you do if it's your mom's car? Does it need new brakes? If your mom's driving it, would you put new brakes on it? Then put new brakes on it. You know, we took care of our customers. We really tried to treat everybody fairly. Now, cars are cars, and obviously they come with a stigma. They come with a reputation that if you're getting ready to go to work Monday morning and heaven forbid your car won't start, well, that darn salesman.
Right.
He knew this car was
Loveless knew better than this.
Loveless knew yeah, but you at the end of the day, you take care of your customers. And
it sounded like you enjoyed it mostly.
I did. Yeah. I did. Yeah. Other than the regulation, I sat down at one point and was just frustrated because it was like another government agency wants some more information, and I just started to make a list. And when I got up to 21 different departments that, in one way or another, there was some form of compliance, it was like, okay, so
that's a lot.
It is a lot. It's not productive. And whereas I love what the government tries to do, they're out there to protect people, I think they forget the marketplace actually does a really good job of. It's no different, Andy. Think about your business. You're servicing customers all day long. If you live and die by your reputation.
Yeah.
And it's not that complicated. You take care of people like they need to be taken care of.
And it makes it some of the larger dealers, they have enough technology that you sign in a couple of places, it spits out 50 pages of paperwork and you're done. I bought a car from criminy. Shamrock? Shannon.
Good people. Joe Harris.
Yeah, I bought a car from them probably 5 months ago. And, they handle all the paperwork. It's no big deal. But it was a lot less stressful. Yeah. There's no special programs really. There's no maintenance overlays to add on. It's just like, here's a car. Do you want to buy it or not? Because I had a great experience.
Well, and at Northside, we developed a program before CarMax was even on there. I used to tease that CarMax stole our business strategy when they came in, because we put the prices on the windows of the cars.
Right.
So if you think about a customer, this was always my feeling. If you go in to shop for a car, you understand the dealer has to make a profit.
Sure.
And nobody begrudges the dealer a profit. What bothers people is that you might pay more for the car than what the next guy is.
Yeah.
Because you're not as good a negotiator. So simplify things. Put the price on the car. Don't negotiate it. Just put a fair price, and that's the price.
And that's it.
And when people know, it doesn't matter whether you're Andy or George or Joe or Pete, that's the price. They go, oh, okay. Yeah.
The first time I ran into that, did you know the guys that ran Auto Advantage?
Boy, I feel like I should have.
They had a shop where they went out and bought program cars, like company cars, stuff like that, all BMWs.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
And,
yes.
I went in there just to look, and because it was interesting to me. It's like a parking lot full of BMWs, like over Manassas Park, and, not the industrial part of Manassas Park, right? And so I go down there, and there's 2 or 3 stickers on the window. One's like, here's the original sticker, right? And then the second sticker is, here's what we did to fix things and what it cost us, and here's the whole price. And the guy came out, and, it was, I don't know, say $40,000. I don't know what it was. And I said, I'll give you 35. And he said, it's 40. And I said, I think I can appreciate that, No dickering back and forth. It's just, this is the price.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And those guys have had, I don't know, I don't have the same contacts in the business I did, but I know they had an excellent reputation at the time for what they did. Yeah.
They did.
Yeah.
Their maintenance guys were fantastic.
Yes.
Now, servicing a BMW ain't exactly cheap.
No.
But,
well, you know what BMW stands for, right? Bring it in for more work. That was the running joke for a long time.
It's a hell of a car, but it was a lot to maintain, and I had a 2-door. It didn't really fit my needs. You know, a kid and dogs, and it's just not happening. So anyway,
but it was a stage.
Yeah. Well, and I may go back to it.
That's right. Absolutely, you will. Yeah.
So you got hooked up with her, and when did you? Because it used to just be 1 unit, right? And now it's 2.
Now it's 2.
When did you guys do that?
Well, we got really fortunate. We needed to expand there in the shopping center. So for a while, the landlord, nice guy, he was juggling us back and forth. So we had to share. We weren't side by side. We had split up. We had 2 different spots down there, which got to be a little bit of a nuisance because you were pushing dresses up and down the sidewalk.
Right.
But then fortunately it came to pass that there was an opening and he was able to get us in. So yes, and I'll have to take you for a tour of the back side of the shop that most people don't ever get to see. But it's we have a wonderful staff. We have just great people that are extremely talented, and they just do what they do. You don't see them out front because we just have a small crew that works out front. But they do all the heavy lifting. But then we got really lucky because when we knew we wanted to expand the bridal sales part of the business, and that's when we got fortunate. I think we just hit a small window. The property that we bought there on Sudley Road, where Shellyan actually lives, was Dr. Guerrera's home for a long time. And he was a well-respected, well-known orthopedic doctor here. And he lived there in the residence, and then the side was his practice. And so when it flipped hands a couple times after he retired and let it go, and when it came back on the market, Shellyan and I looked at it and we said, I wonder, if the contingency for us would be, is it still grandfathered in with that commercial license? Because it's a special use permit that's on there. And fortunately, Chuck Rector handled the transaction for us. He said, nope, it will convey. It is still there. I don't think there was a lot of window left on that opportunity, but we were able to get our foot in the door. Not even know exactly what we were going to do with it, but we knew we wanted that type of a setup. And sure enough, it worked out perfect. And then, of course, we get started into the bridal business, and then COVID comes along, which made for some interesting stories. But it was going to take more than COVID to stop brides, but it slowed them a little bit, you know, just because some of them wanted to delay their weddings. But we were able to take advantage of that time and do a build out. Right. And John Hetzel, we used all Rotary guys. Yeah, it was good. I think every bit of that process was fellow Rotarians. Yeah. Whether it was Mike Massey did all the land for us. Tony Finley ended up paving it for us. It was all. But John's company did the architectural work, and then we contracted with John because he also has a construction company, and he did the build out for us.
Oh, cool.
So we were able to take advantage of the COVID era, the initial shutdown, and we got it all built out. And as the world was starting to come back out of COVID, we were 100% ready to go. And so it's worked out really, really well.
Yeah. I mean, that's tricky timing, but it sounds like, it was
It was tricky time.
I mean, the whole COVID thing, really, it's interesting how different businesses dealt with it. I wasn't very optimistic, I'll be honest, because I thought that our customers, are primarily professional services of different sorts, right? We have some weird customers. We have a couple garages. We have a charter airline. We have, lawyers and CPAs and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But then we have these other sort of one-off weird. One of our customers runs a quarry.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was interesting the other day when you were interviewing Mike, and Mike made the comment that they never closed, that they
did.
They were essential services. And I know Yin and I went into it with the same mindset. We said, so who's going to tell me I'm not essential? I said, we're going to make we will make ourselves essential one way or the other.
Right.
In my own mind, I'm essential. I'm essential to somebody. So we were fortunate. And I think you and I were chatting a little bit the other day that Yin and one of our top seamstresses, they got together real quick and designed a face mask. And this was
that's right. We got one of those.
Yeah, this was after we had a nurse come across the street from the hospital, and she was about in tears because there was such a shortage of good equipment at that time. She says, we're reusing the same mask over and over and over again. So Yin said, okay. And she did her homework. She got with some doctors. She figured out, okay, what can we do that would provide some modicum of safety? And, in hindsight, how safe are masks? That could be debated all day long, but certainly it was mandatory. And so there was a need to have them. And if nothing else, it gave people a psychological edge that they felt protected, and they felt like they were protecting other people. So that was all good in that. So we just went into production making these masks. We had the pockets in them. I think you were saying you've got some, but we had the special
the
replaceable filters in them, and all we did, and this was a community effort. Yin and Suni, our wonderful seamstress, they came up with the initial design of how they were going to do it. But we put a plea out to the community. We need fabric. We need elastic. We need this. We need that. And the community, Andy, people would back their cars up. These ladies, the quilting community, these ladies would back their cars up and go, I have this fabric. Can you use it? We'd say, absolutely. And it was just amazing to watch the way the community came together. I remember one gentleman walking in. He was a good customer. He just loved Shelly. And he said, I've got elastic. Because we couldn't get elastic for the bands. He comes in with all these rolls of elastic. We were just, it was just really amazing. So all we could do initially, we were just taking care of the first responders.
Right.
It was like people would come in, can I buy one? No, I'm sorry. We had legal sheets full of names, everything from 911 organizations, fire departments. We were shipping them all across the country.
Wow.
And then even globally, we were sending them out. We had people were just begging for them. And so we kept telling people, when this list is caught up and there's no longer a need to take care of the first responders, then we will start selling them. And I want to say we ended up making 20,000 masks, which is probably not a big deal for a manufacturing facility. But we're a little sewing shop.
Right.
So 20,000 masks was a lot of darn masks to make. So
yeah, we were still over in the West Street office, and I had a sleeve of about 30 masks that I had bought when I was doing some painting and refinishing, and I had never needed it. I had a couple knocking around, and that turned out to be enough. And I sent Mike Perez a text, and I was like, you guys need this stuff? He came to my office to get it.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt. Yes.
And those were just painting respirators. They weren't, they were. Right?
Yeah, they worked. At least it was better than nothing. So. Yeah. We provided hundreds of them to the hospital across the street.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it was definitely a feel good operation, but it made us essential. It kept us going, and we kept selling wedding dresses in the meantime too. So.
I'll say for us, I was worried. I didn't know what a world, because I already knew we were essential. That we weren't going to be allowed to, but we did send everybody home, and they worked remotely, except for when we needed them in the office to install a new computer or something. It was a tsunami of work because everybody all at once wanted to be able to work remotely.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of work. I mean, all day long grinds, just ticket after ticket after, set up VPN, set up, new laptop, set up. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
It really was.
Yeah.
We were right at the limit. We were right at the limit. It was so much work.
Well, Andy, you haven't been through it. I hope we never go through anything like that again. But you know what? If we have to, at least we know we've been down that road.
Yeah.
We'll tough it out and we'll do what we have to do again.
My big fear, and we're veering off into politics, but just a little bit, is, COVID is what it is, right? You can be a skeptic or not or whatever. My fear is that there will be what I'll call, I'll say there will be a pandemic that has a 40% mortality rate. And you have a lot of people who are like, well, I'm not taking the shot. And the bodies will start to stack up. I suspect a lot of people will change their mind about vaccinations when that happens.
Yeah.
But, it'll slow things.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people will die.
Yeah.
But let's hope that we never have to.
Let's hope. Yeah. And I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole with the COVID vaccines. No. I'm not enough of an expert to know what's right, what's wrong. But I will divert the story just for a second, just because I think it's worth telling. Xiaoyin is very involved through Rotary with polio.
Yeah.
Because polio has been such the number one international cause for Rotary for many, many years now. And it's all but wiped out in the world. Always the concern about a resurgence, but they're getting real close. But the gentleman, I don't know if he was a doctor, but his name was Jonas Salk, S-A-L-K. Jonas Salk was the one that came up with that original vaccine for polio. And it's hard to imagine, but it was very devastating to a lot of Americans, to a lot of people in the world for a long time. But Jonas Salk would not patent the medicine.
That's right. I remember that.
Because he said, no, he said something that is this needed for the community, for the world, for the country, I am not going to make a dime off of. This is my gift that I can give.
It's like the guy that developed insulin sold the rights for $1. And now, drug companies still figure out a way to make it, $300 a month worth of whatever. But those guys could have been unbelievably wealthy.
Unbelievably. So if we cross that road again, Andy, maybe, that would be a difference, would be if some of the pharmaceutical companies say, no, this is something we have to do, because that's one of the big criticisms you hear is that, well, it was just a profit-making thing. Well, if we could take the profit out of it, then we could talk about the virtues.
And the taxpayers paid for it.
And yeah. Well, they paid for it, but a lot of people got very rich off of it too. Which
they did. But the other takeaway for me was it was so uncertain because, I live in Old Town and I live right around the corner from my dad. He still lives in the house I grew up with, and he's in his middle 80s, right? And we had people that came and watched him every day, but that was kind of a rotating cast of characters, and we weren't keen on that. So I told my siblings, I said, look, I'll just move in with Dad and we'll live here and we'll take care of him. And that'll be that. No more caregivers. And, we went to work, but again, most of the stuff we were doing was remote. And we were oddly fortunate. And my daughter, who had started her first real job probably 3 or 4 months before COVID, they went remote. So she was still living at home, and all of us we lived in Dad's house to take care of him so we didn't have the caregivers. And my daughter worked from the house, so she fed him lunch. And, we came home and cooked dinner, and, it doesn't matter who cooks dinner. Dad's old school, right? He goes up to Sarah and says, thank you for cooking dinner. half the time that was me. But, the uncertainty. And sometimes, I wore masks to some of the GOP meetings, and I had people ask me about it, and not in a disrespectful or weird way. And I would just explain to him, like, look, Dad's 85. I don't know a whole lot about COVID, but I'm not dragging that home.
Yeah.
So, and people seem to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know if you know that I know your dad. I knew your mom because they were good customers of Shelleyans at the shop.
Yes.
So they were there, but I loved your dad. I still love your dad. I call it the hair over humor. He's got that wit about him that just instant. Everybody's his friend. He could talk to a telephone pole and make a friend out of
for a long time.
For a long time.
And he's one of those guys who goes into a room with 30 people, he comes out with 29 friends.
Bingo. Exactly. And that's only because he's the 30th.
Right.
That's right. Otherwise, he'd have 30 friends. Yeah.
I didn't know a lot of people. I mean, obviously, we lived in that house since 1968, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I was a kid, you didn't really go other places. You went to a neighbor's house for a party or something.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there just wasn't a whole lot of friction in that social circle. I mean, it came up from time to time, but basically, all those people knew that. And, I was talking, I think with Tom about this, and that is that if someone said, we should start a museum. Well, usually happened is the ladies in the neighborhood started organizing, fundraising, and I'm not saying the men didn't have any role, but my impression looking at that through, I was probably 10 years old, was that it was primarily the women that did it. No one said, well, the government should go do this. No.
Yeah.
But so they went and they started gathering stuff and taking stuff from Edgar Rohr and parishes and whoever else would donate it. And they started a museum.
Yeah.
And that was also a very different time.
When you hear those same wonderful stories about even the fire department, you were joking earlier about, I think before we were on air, about we were the best equipped fire department in Northern Virginia. But if the fire department needed a new ambulance, if it needed a new truck, it got the money. It raised the money to go buy what it needed to buy.
They went and raised the money, or somebody donated.
Yeah.
Usually Dudley Martin.
Yeah. Or the merchant family.
Or the merchant family, yes.
Family. Yeah. I remember talking, I wish he's somebody you could have interviewed before he passed away, Buck Buchanan.
Oh, yeah.
But Buck would tell you that there was not a child in Prince William County that didn't have a Christmas present because of the Roars, the Merchants, and the Rices. That between those three people, every child had a toy.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it. I mean, I don't remember Jimmy Rice all that well because I was a kid. But I have a very vivid memory of us, loading up the family station wagon, getting ready to go down to Nag's Head. That's where the Harrowers all went, like second week of August. The Harrowers just emptied out of this place. And we rented all of the little beach boxes that this other family down there owned, and they were in a court, right on the water. And I'll never forget, Dad took me and we went over to the liquor store, and then we went next door, and he walked all the way to the back, where all the money was and whatnot. And he walks and he says, Jimmy, how much money you got in there? And he told him, I don't know what it was, $200-300, I don't know. And he said, all right, I'm just going to write you a check for it. And that's how he got cash to go to the beach, because the bank was closed.
Right.
It was a Friday. It was closed at probably 2.
Right.
And we're in a railroad town.
Here comes our train.
Yeah. And and you think about doing something like that nowadays, now these guys have known each other for a long time, but it's still kind of, it left an impression, obviously.
Absolutely.
But it was a small town, and I mean, that's how the hospital got started.
Yeah.
fundraising.
Yeah.
A couple of guys wrote big checks and made it happen.
Yeah. 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 It was an innocent age for sure, but a wonderful age.
Yeah. One of the things that I miss a lot about Manassas in those days is that, there was an honest to goodness bakery. There was a shoe store. There was a men's clothier, women's, all these individual services that as, the suburbs got farther and farther and farther out and just washed over Manassas, the malls and whatnot killed all those family businesses.
Yeah.
And about 10 years ago, I went to Lexington and they still have a lot of those things. There's still a men's clothes store or a bakery or the Southern Eatery or whatever the hell that place is called.
Yeah.
Fantastic food.
Well, yeah, and you've got me thinking about another story I want to share with you. Do you remember the Phelan family?
Oh, yeah. Bernie Phelan.
Yeah, Bernie.
I went to school with him.
And so mom and dad, everyone called her mom, they ran the Manassas Bakery.
Right.
For many, 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 many years. And Bud, quite a character, loved to sip on a little juice every now and then, but he worked every day.
It's his show, right?
It's his show. And I understand that the fire department never had a call that they had to run that Bud didn't show up with dozens of donuts to take care of all the firefighters.
Oh, wow.
While they were there. Yeah. But I tell you an interesting story that just ties in with how things worked on the handshake. Of course, Rob and I, in our original Northside location, were 2 doors up from the bakery. So,
right.
So obviously they sort of kept me alive. That was my main source of nourishment for many years. And so I got to know Mom quite well.
Yeah.
And she liked Rob and myself, and she would always tease me, or not tease. She would always say, "Kenny, one of these days I'm going to retire, and I want you to buy this property." And I would say, "That is so thoughtful of you, and whenever you're ready, I would love to buy this property."
Right.
And this went on for years. I couldn't go in there for lunch that she wouldn't say, "Kenny, I got you in mind. I'm going to sell you this property." Sure enough, one day she comes to me and she goes, "Kenny, it's time. I'm going to retire."
And that's where Northside is now.
That's where Northside is now. Exactly. So, but here's the rest of the story. So she says, I have some medical issues I have to take care of. And she goes, "And I'm going to finance this to you. And this is what you're going to pay for it. This is how much it's going to sell for."
Right.
"But it's just my retirement. So I'm just going to finance it and you'll make the payments to me." I said, "Mom, it sounds like a perfect relationship and I like the price. So yeah, whenever you're ready, we're ready." Well, Mom literally worked herself to death. She worked so hard. She neglected her health for way too long. And so by the time she got to the doctor said, "You've got 6 months to live."
Oh, no.
Well, she says to her daughter, Karen, a couple of the kids work there in the store, but she says to Karen, as she knows she's checking out, she says, "Karen, I promised Rob and Kenny this store for this price with these terms. I don't want anything to interfere with that." This was all on a handshake.
Right.
There wasn't a piece of paper anywhere.
Right.
I'm talking to Karen at her mom's wake. And Karen says, "Kenny, Mom has told me clearly what her wishes were. Just, I'm the executor. Give me some time to get things sorted out, and we'll do this." A certain amount of time passed, Andy, and Karen says, "Kenny, we're ready." And she didn't want to finance it, so we arranged some other financing to take care of it. But my understanding is that in the interim, dozens of people
approach them.
I bet. And said, "We really want this property." "No, I'm sorry, it's spoken for." It's spoken for. It's spoken for. And I'm sure they turned down some much better offers than what we had been offered.
I mean, that's a prime spot.
But that was just the way the world worked back then. You shook somebody's hand, you gave somebody your word. It was a done deal.
Yeah, I mean, that's remarkable.
It was remarkable. It was truly. That family was just. They were gold. They were absolutely gold.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to get into politics a little bit, if we can. But before we do that, I know there's been sort of a tradition with some of your guests. I didn't bring you anything as good as a good sipping whiskey, but I did find a couple things that I thought you might get a kick out of. So this one, I have to say, your wife ratted you out. I asked her what year you were born, and I think she thought, "What in the heck is he doing? What's he up to?"
So for this, there's no video here, but so what Kenny has given me is what used to be Manassas had their own license plate. Now it's not a full size plate; it would go on the bottom usually of the plate, and it's I don't know, it's about 3 inches tall. It's the width of a regular plate, and it says 1966 on it, which is when I was born. That's good.
Yeah. And then I know you got to talking to Rich or someone during one of your podcasts, and you got to talking about one of your hobbies has always been collecting.
Yeah.
And I'm a collector myself, and I thought this was appropriate because it represented a couple things. I happen to like collecting coins.
Oh, wow.
One of my favorite coins is
the Morgan dollar.
Is the old Morgan dollar.
I love that thing.
Yes. And this particular one, these are some that have been minted freshly. And so I thought it was appropriate because you started your podcast.
Wow. This is fancy, Kenny.
Well, This is
that's fantastic.
This is how valuable I think your podcast is to the community. And I have so much respect for what you're doing here. And
I appreciate that.
I think this is not just fun. This is something that's needed.
Yeah. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. This is also my favorite silver dollar.
Okay.
And I think the oldest one I have is like 1892 or something. It's not in great shape.
Yeah.
It was very impressive when I was a kid.
Oh, yes.
Well, thank you for those things.
Well, that one, of course, is one of these new ones they're minting.
Right.
So it's a 2025. But I thought, well, you'll know what year you started your podcast.
Yeah.
And may you have many, many years of this podcast.
Well, I appreciate
going,
that, man.
So
that's cool. That Manassas plate's wild.
Yeah. But let's see here. I did want to talk about, because one of the central themes that keep coming through your podcasts, of which I'm a self-admitted podcast junkie.
Same. I have become one.
Yeah. I just totally love podcasts, and so when I said Andy's doing a podcast, I was just so excited, and I'll make a public disclosure here. I told Andy, I don't think he wants to compromise his integrity, but I told Andy, I said, if you ever start taking sponsors for your podcast, I said, I'm the first one, like Tang's Alterations would love to be a paying sponsor. So we could get those little 15-second blurbs. Oh, in this segment, brought to you.
If we ever add video, you might hear from me.
Okay.
So that's expensive.
Fair enough. So, but I wanted to talk a little bit about this theme that you've had going with some.
We had a little breaking the action there. The laptop died. So, can you talk about the theme?
Yeah, there's been sort of a theme throughout a lot of your podcasts talking about the state of the union, the state of the city. You know, where are we at? Are we cloudy? Do we have a good future? What's going on with the city? And I want to say that this is from my side of the fence, from my opinion, that the best days are ahead of us. But there's a couple major things that I think the city council is pushing to the side, is neglecting, that if we're going to turn this back into what Vanderpool might call a world-class city, that I think we need to get fixed. And at the top of that list is our school system.
100%.
Andy, think about this. Think about the wonderful services we have in the city. If there was an automobile accident out in front of your business right now, everybody would come rushing.
Yeah.
Rescue, the fire. It would be all hands on deck to take care of whatever needed to be taken care of. If a house caught on fire, if a burglary at a bank happened, wow, everybody's rushing to the scene to make sure that it's taken care of. We have a school system that if you were going to give it a report card today, where would you assess it?
I mean, it ain't good. You know, it's not.
It is not.
The test scores are so low, and you know, my big thing is that I still feel like the school system does a lot of the right things, but I don't feel as though they have a compelling North Star. You know, one of my favorite slogans is from the Raiders. I don't know if they still use it or not, but it's demand for excellence. Mm. And when the Raiders were in their heyday, I mean, that was their credo. That was it.
Yeah.
You know, we demand excellence from our players.
Yeah.
And, you know, I read through the schools. I didn't read the whole thing, but I read through a fair amount of the school's strategic plan. And, you know, to me, I'm in a different business, right? I'm a nerd. I run a consulting business. But to me, I feel like that could help. You know, I don't know. It's not like the only answer, right? It's maybe a small part of it. But I think that you lead with that and you build down. So, I mean, if our schools performed at the state average, I feel like you and I probably wouldn't be able to afford to live here.
And yet, I feel like we would, because a rising tide lifts all boats. And so...
It does.
I don't want the opposite. I don't want to say, oh, I can afford to live in Manassas because our school system is so bad, nobody else wants to live here.
Right.
I really want to deal with the other side of that problem. I want to say, wow, this is the place everybody wants to live.
Yeah, and it's still, I mean, Manassas is still popular, but, you know, I've run an IT consulting business, so a lot of my employees tend to be younger. Mm-hmm. You know, the senior guys have some gray hair, but the rest of them are, you know, 20-somethings, mm-hmm. early 30s. And I can tell you that without exception, when one of my guys, you know, and his wife or her husband, those families, once they decide to have a kid, they're moving out of Manassas.
And because of the schools.
Yeah.
Because of the schools.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And Andy, I think you and I think your podcast, you more than me, I think your podcast can be the leader in turning this mindset around and getting, it's just like that fire. It's like that house fire. We need all hands on deck. And I was so discouraged the other day when there's an article, I think Uriah printed an article in the Potomac Local about a 5-year plan to fix our schools. I'm going, the building's on fire, folks.
Yeah.
You're telling me the fire truck isn't going to get here for 5 years? Well, how would you feel if your daughter was in 8th grade today? In the public school system.
She would not be in the public schools.
Well, but if she is,
right,
and someone tells you, I have a 5-year plan,
right, right,
and you go,
now I'm left behind.
So my daughter doesn't matter. So we're taking 5 years of kids and saying, you don't count, you don't matter.
Yeah.
Now, how many people that are on the current school board are going to be there in 5 years? How many people that are on city council are going to be there in 5 years? The house is on fire, folks. If we're going to be a world-class city, I don't even want to hear about being equal with the state schools. I don't understand why Manassas isn't the flagship number one best school system in the state. We only have one high school to take care of. I'm gonna try to keep calm because this gets me riled up. We have how many schools? 6 elementary schools, intermediate, a middle.
Yeah, like 10.
And we're not number one in the state with the income in this area, Andy.
The problem, I mean, there's a lot of nuance to the issue, right? I tend to find I'm a strategic planner, big thinker kind of guy, so I tend to take issue with the documents, the vision documents that have been shared. But when I was on the council, I led 2 initiatives to try and help the schools. One was funding the science and technology program, which is still there, I'm pretty sure. Integrated math and science is, I think, a part of that. And it's tough. It's a tough course. But, it made a dent, right? But then I asked the mayor to appoint a couple of council members. And, I asked the mayor and the school board chair to appoint a couple of members. And let's have a joint meeting and figure out a meaningful way to improve the schools. And I put on the table that we would be able to fund something up to $1 million a year. Now, I didn't really have full approval for that at the time, but I thought that let's just see how serious everybody is. And it went nowhere. We had a couple of meetings. It went nowhere. They basically said, just give us the $1 million and we'll fix problems. And, to me, that wasn't what it was about. And I can tell you that I've done some fair amount of research on this. Now, some of it's 10 years ago, but in order to address this, you need a whole of government effort. Absolutely. There is no way that you can just tell the school board, you need to fix this. The city council and the mayor have got to be on board with this. And These guys have to be vibing together, right? Absolutely. And because if you don't, you take away a lot of firepower. Yeah. One of the programs that I did start that didn't survive very long was we had problems like, there's kids, they get out of school, they got nothing to do. And I said, well, we have a Boys and Girls Club. Mm-hmm. And so I went over there and had a meeting with them. And I said, hey, we got all these kids, primarily where I was trying to service was Georgetown South. But we have all these kids, they got nothing to do, they get in trouble or whatever. Can we send them to you? And they said, yeah. And I said, well, the only wrinkle is we need a program that is structured and has like assessments. So after 4 weeks, kids, we're going to run them through a program on math or whatever it is. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And then after that, we're going to run an assessment and measure progress. And they said, oh, we already have all this built. And I said, really? I said, I don't have any money. And they said, that's okay. So I went back to the city staff and they said, well, that's great, but we have no transportation. So I called Kathy. She was a superintendent at the time. Mm-hmm. And I said, I need a bus. And she kind of laughed. And I said, McGolrick, yeah. I said, I need a bus. And she said, oh, well, we have buses. What do you want it for? And I said, I need a bus to take kids from Georgetown South to the Boys and Girls Club and back. And I don't have any money. And she said, we can do that. And so, that program went for maybe one summer, mm-hmm. but, it died because it probably the plan didn't come from the school board. And, I understand that, I wouldn't want someone trotting on my front yard either. But if you're going to fix it, it's got to be whole government effort.
It's got to be. And interestingly enough, my utility bill came in the mail this morning. I still get the old-fashioned one in the envelope. Yeah. But I love it because I like the city newsletter.
Right.
That comes in there. And so, there's Steve, our new city manager, talking to us. There's our mayor talking to us. I couldn't find one single mention about our schools
Right.
anywhere in that newsletter. And I'm going, this is our single number one biggest problem in the city is the lack of a good school system. We are spending, Andy, as best as I can estimate, somewhere around $18,000 to $19,000
I believe it.
per student.
It was 12
in our school
when I got out.
At that, so I think conservatively I can say 18 or 19. And please, anyone out there listening to this, if you can give me updated, more accurate information or correct me if I'm wrong, but that works out to about $75 a day per student. And I'm thinking, okay, I don't begrudge that money.
Yeah.
Heck, Andy, what percentage of our budget is that? Are we at 52 or 55% of our tax dollars are going into our school system?
Yeah, it's something like that. They lobbied to get rid of the negotiated split. Yeah, and then in the last couple of years, they've become very unhappy with the results of that. So I think they're trying to put it back on the table, but I admit to not being up to date on it.
Well, I'm a very fiscally conservative guy, but I will tell you, when we're this darn close and we're spending this much anyway, if it takes a little bit more, why are we not? People say we can't compete with the county, and I go, why not? I say, we're a small system. We can pay more than the county.
Mm-hmm.
We can attract the best principals because we'll pay more and we'll give them better benefits and we'll give them a better quality of life. Let's get the best people in here. We've got you pull up the city school website and look at the top end, the heavy loaded administrative side of our school system. It's like, holy cow, there's more people in more pigeonholes. Do we really need all this? Maybe I'm oversimplifying things in my mind, Andy, but I grew up in a day and age where it wasn't uncommon. And I would tell you, one of those mentors that I had as a young man, it wasn't uncommon that someone would say, oh yeah, that guy, well, he's only got an 8th grade education.
Right.
It was very commonplace, but better than most, if you had an 8th grade education 50 years ago, 60 years ago, maybe a little bit further, you were so far ahead in your reading, your writing, your arithmetic, your history, your basic sciences. You were so far ahead of where our kids coming out of 12 years are these days. Our kids can't read. They can't write.
Those reports are pretty damning.
Oh, they're very, very scary. And I'm going, okay, I understand. There's hands off. The school board is responsible for running that. But if your next door neighbor's house is on fire, you're not going to wait for somebody else to dial 911.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem, right? The school boards are going to say, stay off of our lawn. And the city council is also going to say, well, look, we're not responsible for this because, they view it. I'm guessing, I've never asked any of them, but if it was me, I'd view it as a bit of a political liability, right? Because they're really struggling. And if I tried once, other people have probably tried, but basically what you have to do to get that to work, you've got to get the school board chair in that chair right there and the mayor in that chair right there.
Bingo.
And
Bingo.
That doesn't seem like it's a thing.
And get the administrator, the gentleman that wrote to it. Let me tell you a story. This is how sad it is to me. About a year ago, we had, as one of our programs at Rotary Club, we had one of the assistant superintendents come in and talk to the club. And I'm sorry, but giving us all this newfangled, new modern ideas about how we're going to grade report cards and how we're going to grade this and we're going to grade that and all this highfalutin, high-fangled, great theory. Say, can we just give A's and B's and C's and D's and oh, you passed and you failed? And I don't understand why we've got so complicated with it. At the end of his presentation, I said, I have a question for you. I said, and this isn't directly about Manassas City Schools. This is about our school system in general. And this gentleman, I'm not going to tell you his name, but he had more diplomas and more degrees and more from every university in the state of Virginia. Just the wall would been covered with his different diplomas.
Right.
I said, can you tell me why American schools are falling behind the rest of the world? And he looked at me with a straight face and he said, I have no idea. My jaw dropped. I thought, seriously? This is who's running our school system, and you can't tell me why our schools are failing? Uh-oh.
No, we're good. We're good. No, well, if the I did, yeah, no, we're good. My takeaway from my time on council was that the answer is it's complicated. And I don't discount that. The schools have to deal with a lot of incoming fire. You've got, just in the current milieu, you've got, Trump and the feds using policy to push whatever initiatives they want down to the local boards. And basically they're using taxpayer money to enforce compliance with their policy. I mean, that's their prerogative, right? Every president does that. That's the whole reason the Department of Education was formed, so they could use federal money to dictate local outcomes. And they get the localities hooked on the money. So there's that. Our students, it's still a struggle. With a lot of our students are lower income, and some don't speak English all that well. Some may not speak it at all. I don't know what the current facts are. So I agree with the idea that it's complicated is right, but I also believe that we shouldn't take that for an answer. Both things can be true, right?
Yeah. And I don't give as much credence to the fact that it's complicated. And the reason I say that is because for the last 5,000 years, we've been educating youth.
Well, yeah.
And they've come from all backgrounds, all ethnicities, all income levels. Throw anything at you that you can throw. And we've been educating kids. And now all of a sudden, we don't know how to do it. It's complicated. I go, I don't think it's that complicated. I think maybe they're making it complicated.
I mean, I think that the educational establishment as a whole, not just Manassas. Now, there's plenty of hardworking people that work for the schools. The school board members believe in what they're doing. But I think that the educational establishment as a whole, maybe even just particular to each state, does tend to make it more complicated. Sometimes policy makes it more complicated. The state a number of years ago mandated that the schools teach financial literacy. I think that's a dandy idea, right? They didn't really give them a hell of a lot of guidance and no money. So, now, we have a whole other class, and who's going to teach that class?
And I guess in my simple mind, I go, okay, I'll teach you financial responsibility. I'm going to teach you how to read. And I'm going to provide you with some books. You can educate yourself. Once I teach you how to read and I teach you arithmetic, I teach you mathematics, well, the world's out there. It's at your doorstep. I don't fall back onto this thing that the schools are responsible for teaching a kid how to balance a checkbook.
Well, the governor thought so.
Well, the governor thought so. And so you go, we're working on that. We're teaching our kids how to read. And as soon as they learn how to read, they'll be able to figure out how to balance that checkbook. So
yeah, it's tough.
Maybe I'm oversimplifying it. But,
well, no, but I mean, there are, I'm not saying, I think several things can be true, right? A guy like you wants to see an education through a very traditional lens. Not a thing in the world wrong with that. But it can also be complicated, and we can also have other problems. And you could use and I'm characterizing what you're saying as a more traditional education. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what I had. But I I mean, other people may not think that much of me, but I seem to think it's okay. But you're right. I think several of those things can be true if you elect to say, like, look, this is our guiding light. We're going to provide a very traditional education, and that's going to be that. You could certainly do that. I mean, they do that at Pennington.
Yeah.
That's a traditional school.
Bingo.
In fact, that's one of the things. I had a discussion with a buddy of mine at Rotary, and he came in and he said, he lives in the county. Mm-hmm. He moved from the city into the county about the time that he got married, and he said, his kids went to a school out in the plains, but he said, why doesn't Manassas do something like Pennington? Like, you have a small system. You have a school that's just going to teach very traditional curriculum. And, there's going to be, I mean, I've never set foot. Well, actually, Pennington was called Bennett Elementary, and that was my elementary school back in the day. But I've never set foot in it since it's been called Pennington. He said, that could attract people here if they could opt in to that school. And, I've asked a couple of school board members that, and they all say that's just not possible. And I haven't really looked into it. But, the schools thing is an interesting discussion. I interviewed Sarah Brescia, and her big thing is the grading scales and how, if you do nothing, you get 50%. And I think I have agreed with her ideas for a while on this. I don't know why you get any credit at all if you don't turn in something. And one of the reasons that I believe that is because, I've run a business for 25 years. If you turn in nothing and you work for me, you know what happens? You don't work for me.
That's right.
There's no...
Your paycheck reflects.
Right, that's exactly right. I mean, in the real world, you can't do that.
You can't do that.
And get by. I mean, could you find a job and do the minimum? Yeah. But you're also...
Well, government jobs are hard to get these days.
Well, yeah. There's more and more feds coming.
That was a joke.
Well, I mean... There's more and more feds showing up in my my application line for sure, and it looks like it's about to get worse. But it's a thing, but it does require a whole of government effort to fix this thing.
Yes.
And those guys are going to have to start communicating and something like that. I mean, maybe you could get somebody to run on that. I don't think that seems tremendously likely. Susan Seberg is the chair right now. They've passed some rule where you can only be chair for 2 or 3 years or something.
Yeah.
I don't understand the genesis of that, but it's none of my business. I'm not on the board, so. But I think that you have to have somebody that runs as education, as their Northern Star. There may be an opportunity for the Republicans to do that.
Yeah.
Traditionally, Republicans in the city run on, well, taxes are just too damn high. I mean, that's what I did, right? And at that time, overcrowding was a huge issue in Manassas. It's really come down to kind of a dull war these days. But, and if the Republicans just sort of posited that, taxes are too high, but you know what? No one seems to care because we keep getting crushed.
Right.
So let's talk about something different. Let's talk about schools and have a slate, a mayor and 3 council members. Like, look, this is job one.
Yeah.
We are going to insist that whatever happens, right? I think that'd be a tremendous platform.
Well, this is where I think your podcast can just be huge. And because unfortunately, if you don't have a kid in the school system and you're not paying attention to what's going on, I don't think you recognize how bad the school system has gotten. Because it's not affecting you directly.
Right.
Indirectly, I can tell
sure
you,
it does.
It's penalizing you.
Sure it does.
Horrible. Yeah.
I mean, I want to live in a place that has successful schools. I want educated citizens and all that fun and games.
Yes. Exactly.
It's tough.
And our schools were there. I mean, the success stories that came out of Osborne High School are huge. You could fill a book with success stories. but we're not doing it now because we've just lowered the standards so much. So I don't know what it is, Andy. If they say they can't do it, well, do we look at vouchers? Do we look at school choice programs? Do we say, yeah, you can live in the city and take your money and go to any school you want in the county and we'll pay for it? We got to think out of the box.
Well, I'll tell you
what we're doing.
As a practical matter, that's happening anyways. People are just eating the tax bill and then paying for their kids to go to county, or I mean, there's a fair number of houses in Old Town that have been bought by folks that I wouldn't say they have large families, but it's more than 2 kids usually that are going to a county school or one of the local religious. Yeah. And there's those people are dedicated to that.
Yeah.
And there are an increasing number of those folks because they love living in Old Town.
Yeah.
But they are not going to send their children for religious reasons or practical reasons. Doesn't matter. They're not going to send their kids to city schools. They're just going to eat the tax bill.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that enough people, if we can educate people to the problem, if we can make people aware that there is a problem, then we can start to come up with ways to fix it. And I think right now our job is to just educate. We need to ring every school bell. We need to ring every bell that we can because our schools are a disaster and it's hurting all of us.
Yeah, I wish I could get all the school board members to come on. I've invited most of them. I don't think all. I think I've invited all of the council members. No, I'm missing one. And 2 of them appeared or whatever. I mean, it's a little discouraging.
Yeah.
Because I feel like those guys should be happy to talk to the public.
Right.
And in this podcast, I mean, my interview format is not gotcha crap.
No.
It's just not. It's like, let's talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Exactly.
I'm pretty, easy going on it. Now, if, there has been something like the council giving themselves a raise, right? If you come in here a week after you've had that vote, we're probably talking about it.
Yeah.
Although I gave a CNO pass. But, I'm not gonna,
Yeah.
I'm just not doing that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise people won't want to come on.
Yeah. And I would, I've heard the stories that, not to get sidetracked too far onto that pay raise thing, but just at its core, it really irks me because I have seen in my lifetime literally millions of hours donated to every good cause, whether it's somebody running the Girl Scouts, whether it's somebody running a soccer league, whether it's our precious GMVL out there, whether it's just people giving of their time because they love that activity or they love to support the kids that way.
Right.
And I'm going, why are elected officials any different? Aren't you doing it for the right reason, that it's your passion to give back to your community?
Well, someone asked me about that, right? So when I was on council, we made like $10,000 or $12,000. So, and you had to buy your own health insurance if you wanted it. So, my view, someone asked me about it and I said, well, like, what's your view on this? And they said, well, it should be a living wage. And I said, being an elected official is public service. It's not a paid job. And I feel pretty strongly about that. Hal said something about it as well when he came on. It's not a paid job. It's something you do for community service. And that's that.
Exactly.
And well, that favors like the rich people over the poor people. I don't know, my experience is not that. I don't think, when I was on council, there were several people who were retired who were not well-to-do. They did okay, but certainly not rich. I certainly wasn't rich.
Right.
No.
Right.
So to me, it's community service, and that's the way that people should think about it. Other people have their opinions, and that's fine.
Yeah,
that ain't the way I see it.
They're entitled to it, and I welcome anyone to come on and make their case, make their case. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Isn't that something, not to sidetrack too far, but isn't that half the problem that's going on in the city and in the county and in the world today, is that we're not willing to sit down and just debate ideas anymore, that we have become so polarized. So if on some small level here in the city, we can make a difference, you're making a difference with your podcast, that we can sit down and just debate ideas and all shake hands at the end of the day and say, I respect your opinions, and I'm still going to vote the way I'm going to vote, but I hear people out. It's terrifying when whether Kirk being the latest one, but to have people shooting other people because they don't agree with what they have to say, it's like, that doesn't bode well for any of us.
Yeah, that political violence, and for me, it's hard to say, well, it comes from the left. That woman, where was she, in Minnesota? She was a state lawmaker. She and her husband and her dog were murdered.
Yeah.
And that guy had a list of officials.
Yeah.
And, and certainly the Charlie Kirk thing was horrible.
Yeah.
But this guy burned down that Mormon church and shot a bunch of people.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's less about politics and more about crazy people having guns.
Yeah.
And I'm a gun guy. I have a bunch of guns. But man, it's just like, these killings. There was a guy who went out on a boat in North Carolina, just 100 yards offshore, and started firing into some sort of fish processing place or something.
Mm-hmm.
Killed 3 people, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The Coast Guard caught him pulling his boat out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he probably should just flip the boat and sunk it. But, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know how you fix it. I'm not proposing anything, right? Some states have red flag laws that those clearly don't work.
Yeah.
But it's this level of violence is just acceptable to our society.
Right.
I mean, Charlie Kirk said the same thing. Some people are going to have to die in order to keep the Second Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
But man, at some point, there's a meme I've seen on the internet says that there's no way to solve this problem. It says the only country that has this problem. Now that's tongue in cheek, right?
Yeah,
but I mean, it makes you a little uncomfortable because it's kind of close to home.
Yeah. No, I boil it down. One of my favorite words, I've always tried to live by this word, is a simple word called respect.
Yeah.
And invariably, when we lose respect for an object or a person or a place or a thing, it's going to come back to haunt us and bite us. And what we have today is a lack of just good old-fashioned, decent respect for other people's views and other people's opinions.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of debate.
No, it's like everyone's been painted into a corner. So
even, I mean, we saw, in the early 2010s or whatever, the rise of the Tea Party, right? Mm-hmm. And all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. That happened here too.
Sure, totally.
And, those guys would come to city council meetings. They would send me emails like, you need to cut something. And finally.
Well, John Wayne was probably the leader of the backwoods.
Yeah. Well, they liked him.
John. I mean,
Lovejoy. Yeah. Well, and Avani for sure.
Uh-huh.
But, finally I said, look, come over to my house. We'll have a couple of beers. I got a couple of copies of the budget. We can walk through it. You guys tell me what you want to cut.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we really didn't agree on what to cut. But they also didn't agree with the budget, but they respected the fact that, like, I had done my homework, right? I understand a lot of these moving parts. Mm-hmm. That kind of dialogue, even though, we didn't really agree. And I put Dan Arnold in this one chair next to the window. And I didn't realize it, but he got sunburned that afternoon. but we didn't agree, but we also didn't get into a fist fight.
Right.
And that's kind of where you got to get to. I just don't see that way, really. So,
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully we'll get back there. Before you let me go or kick me out of here, the one other thing I do want to bring up, because I think it ties very closely to the schools, and I won't dwell on it a lot. But there is a problem in the city that some of our neighborhoods are crumbling.
Yeah.
And I would ask anybody that wants some history on understanding the situation that we're in today with respect to our zoning enforcement within the city. I, I've shared it with you in the past, Andy, but I've put together a short white paper on where we're at today and sort of how we got here with our neighborhoods. And I know we're talking to a small audience right now, but I would encourage anybody that says, Kenny, yeah, I don't think the problem's that bad. I would encourage you to connect with a friend of mine, Amalfi. Many people know Amalfi.
Yeah, Amalfi.
And ask Amalfi to take you on a tour through the bowels of Point Woods, through the bowels of some of neighborhoods all across the city now, where zoning infractions are taking place in a bad way. Even probably some criminal activity.
Huh?
More than likely some prostitution in ways that we don't even want to think about are happening right underneath our noses. But if all you're subject to is driving up and down Grand Avenue or up and down,
right, you ain't gonna see it.
You're not going to see it. But get with Amalfi and go take a tour. I'll be glad to share my white paper with you.
Yeah, you email it to me. I'll put it up on my page with this.
Excellent.
You know, it's interesting when I go running or hiking or whatever. Most mornings, I've gotten into that crazy weighted vest thing. The city looks very different at 5:30 a.m. You will see, 10 cars in front of a house or something.
Yes.
And that just seems to be kind of the way it's going. But zoning enforcement has always been near impossible. It got better for a while in the city, but it seems like it's kind of drifted off. Now, when I talked to Tom Osina, he was very receptive to people contacting him, with certain issues, and he would kind of look into it. So, but yeah,
well, and to Tom's credit, I'll give him credit where credit is due. He actually sat down and we had a really good discussion about our neighborhoods, because I know one of Tom's overriding concerns is what we used to call affordable housing, we now refer to as attainable housing.
Yeah.
Just a fancier way to. The bottom line is the government can't do a whole heck of a lot about the price of housing.
No.
It's a supply and demand issue.
Well, for the government to do anything effective in housing, the government's got to go into the housing business.
Exactly.
And I don't think much of that idea.
I don't like that idea at all.
No.
And I would harken back to the fact that, you know what? You show me you know how to run that school system right first. And when you get the schools fixed, because that's one of the things we've charged you with doing, and we give you a lot of money to do it, get those schools fixed, and then we can talk about you developing commercial properties.
Right.
But if you can't do the schools right, why would I think you can do anything else right? So teach me, show me that you're going to take care of. You're getting out of your lane. Your lane is take care of.
Yeah. I just don't know. With taxes going up 6, 8, 9% a year, whatever it is, I don't know how you have affordable housing. Because unless the taxpayers, not the city, unless the taxpayers are going to underwrite that kind of housing, even if you got a landlord to agree, your rent's going up 7% a year just for taxes.
Well, and here's a couple of things that tie into this supply and demand equation that affects the price of housing. If you are trying to buy a house for your family, and we're both looking at the same house, you want to buy it for your family. I'm going to buy it because I know I can divvy it up and put 5 renters in there.
Right.
Well, who do you think is going to pay more for that house? So we're distorting the value of the home because I'm looking at it as an investment vehicle. You're looking at it as a place to live.
Right.
Well, we're pushing more and more of our percentage of our housing into this rental market.
Yeah.
Whether it's being bought by local investors, whether it's being bought by corporate investors, we need to get our arms wrapped around it. And the city of Manassas is one of the few jurisdictions, maybe the only jurisdiction left in Northern Virginia, that doesn't treat landlords like they're running a business.
Yeah.
Think about it. If you want to go sell lemonade over at the farmer's market this Saturday, chocolate chip cookies and lemonade, you got to get a license from the health department to do that. But if you want to go out here on Southey Road and buy a house and rent it out to 5 individuals, you don't need a license to do that.
Oh.
You are totally unregulated. So I just say, let's level the playing field. Again, I'm a conservative, but fair is fair. I don't want to see our neighborhoods deteriorate because you don't have homeowners in there anymore that have the pride of taking care of their property because they don't care they're short-term renters that are going to be going tomorrow. So there's a lot that we need to take a look at. Zoning has to get more involved. If we only have 4 guys in the zoning department and it's a problem, okay, then maybe the budget needs to be fixed somewhere else so we can put more weight on that area.
Right.
I fear for all of us if we don't get our schools and we don't get our neighborhoods under control.
Yeah.
So
schools are basics.
Schools are basics. Yeah. Andy, before I run out of here on you, I know your passion for AI.
Yeah.
And I know it's like a hobby to you.
Yeah.
And I would love to see you. I'm just throwing an idea out there for you. I'd love to see you do some AI chit chats on your podcast. Maybe bring in some other individuals that share your passion.
Well, my son-in-law works in the field for a large insurance company. And, it's interesting. He and I have these debates and it drives strong opinions. I heard a lady from a local university speak, and it was a small room. And someone said, well, when do you think like AI is going to start being built into weapons? And she said, well, that's kind of against international law, and I'm not sure that'll ever happen. And I think it was within a week. I read an article about like how the Ukrainians are building AI into everything.
Yeah.
And then you have people that say that it's not intelligence, really. It's just a much higher level, advanced kind of search, and it assembles stuff that it finds. And there are good arguments on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
There was an excellent article in the Wall Street Journal probably about 2 months ago about a lady who she's accumulated enough information about how the models work that she's researching the models themselves now. And, the argument, the traditional AI argument has always been it's intelligence versus it's not intelligence. It has just developed a lot of information that it understands, and it's just developing shortcuts.
Mm-hmm.
So this lady fed in for Lower Manhattan. She fed in 1 million turn-by-turn directions into a model. And then she had it print out the routes. And, Lower Manhattan's a grid, right? It doesn't have crazy, in lower Manhattan, it has some crazy streets, but by and large, it's just straight up and straight across. Mm-hmm. And it looked like someone took a bucket full of black twine and just threw it on the ground. There were routes that went diagonally through, which don't exist. There were routes that went out into the river and back. But when she asked that model for turn-by-turn directions, it was 95% accurate. When she closed off one of the streets and asked for directions, 60% accurate.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's, is it, and that's just, that's just anecdotal, right?
Yeah.
But does that mean that it's not really learning? It's just aping what it sees. And I don't know, man. It does remarkable stuff.
Are you of the mindset that it is the next revolutionary piece of or evolution is humankind?
So is it like another? Yeah,
Is it a cotton gin? Is it a printing press? Is it the next?
I don't think that
big story.
I don't think that we're in much danger currently of having an AI that has a conscience. I don't think that's not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But because I think the AI guys at this point, they're really struggling to produce larger models. They ran out of data. They basically read the internet, right? And now they're using a lot of synthetic data, which is data that the model makes up and then takes in.
Mm-hmm.
And people worry a lot about how that might impact the quality of the results. And it took OpenAI much longer to train this latest model than they thought.
Oh.
So I think there's not a lot of definitive answers. I think that it's a hell of a tool.
Mm-hmm.
It does some amazing stuff. I uploaded 3 pictures of my face to a video AI, and it made a movie of me running up one of the pyramids in Egypt in like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And it wasn't great, but still, it was like, wow.
Yeah.
So I do think that it's still fulfilling its promise as the next thing. Steve Jobs once said that a computer is like a bicycle for your mind. And
it's a good way to look at it.
That's how I think of AI. Yeah. My office manager, she's in it all day long, because she's not technical, but people call in and they're like, well, I need this much RAM on my computer or whatever. She asks ChatGPT, how do it just out it comes. Yeah. So it's definitely an efficiency tool.
Well, I listened to a podcast the other day where they were interviewing Sam Altman.
Mm-hmm.
And if I understand it correctly, Sam is like one of the granddaddies of ChatGPT. And he looked haggard. He looked worn out.
I bet.
And he says, I have not had a good night's sleep since Chat was launched. What, 5 years ago now, I guess?
Yeah.
That's when it first hit the market.
Yeah.
But he goes, they are dealing with, well, like you say, it doesn't have a conscience, but somewhere at the bottom of all this data, all this information that it's gathered, somebody is down there sort of pulling levers as to what direction are we going to lean? Are we leaning right? Are we leaning left? Are we trying to stay between the guideposts going straight down? Because they're getting strange, weird questions now, like, how do I commit suicide? What's the best way to commit suicide? What's the best way to arm myself up to take out a federal building?
Right.
Just these really, and it's like, how do you deal with that?
People are crazy.
People are crazy. So how does Chat deal with that? And he said, basically, I am begging Congress constantly.
Yeah.
Give me some
rules. Yeah.
Give us some rules so that we know we're not allowed to cross the line.
He has a lot of reason to worry. During COVID, the 2020 election, a lot of people got kicked off social media platforms because they were saying COVID's fake or whatever they were saying, right? Mm-hmm. And, while I generally don't think it's very helpful for people to do that, the First Amendment's a thing, right? So it's their right to do that. But for ChatGPT, they use humans to teach the model, right? So they have the model accumulate all this data, and they use humans to do what's called reinforced learning. Like, not so much like that this idea is wrong, but this one is right. And I think that there's so much data that I'm hard pressed to find a bias in those models. It may exist, but I think it's a lot less likely than something like Facebook, where, Facebook controls the algorithm. There's not a whole lot of, there's not 5,000 people working to do that as there is like an AI. Now, it certainly could happen. I'm not saying it has or it hasn't. I think it's less likely. But I think your second point is far more important because people do ask those LLMs crazy things like that. Now, ChatGPT, if you're like, how do I write a letter telling someone that they're a butthole? It'll say, look, that's not my thing, right? We're not doing that. Mm-hmm. But other models may not be as discriminating. Plus, you could set your own up.
Yeah,
it's not hard.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost much.
You said it's not hard. It's like above my pay grade.
Well, right, but
tell you that.
If you're determined, you could do it. But yeah, I mean, AI is it's a tremendous advantage, but it's also I've been involved in some project discussions with clients where they're talking about using AI for lots of different things. Some of it, I mean, we're in Northern Virginia, right? So some of it might be defense related. Some of it might be like taking this big data set from our server, reading it and helping us understand what's in there, stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. So, those are all things that can happen.
That are going to happen.
Happen. I mean, so much money in AI, I don't think it's going away anywhere. Right. But I think that the amount of gravity is going to increase. They're I think that they're going to go through a period where they struggle. Inevitably, someone who's really smart will sort out something and they'll be off to the races.
Yeah.
But, because right now it's just AI is just brute force. You have a building the size of one of those data centers, it's full of computers. Yeah. There's 40 of them, that are working on this thing for one particular company.
So is AI, is that what's driving data centers, the demand?
I believe so right now. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's still data centers that do like storage or just compute, but there are definitely data centers that do nothing but AI. Yeah. And, I mean, I love the technology, but those damn data centers are a blight. They're hideous. Mm-hmm. And I think that, like I said, I like the tech. I think it's good for right now. It's good for people, but you go out to like Ashburn, holy cow, there's nothing there but data centers. Yeah. And if Prince William County has their way, same will be true here.
Yeah. And I keep thinking, as fast as I'm watching technology evolve, I keep thinking to myself, 10 years from now, they're all going to be obsoleted by some satellite that's floating in the air that is able to do 100 times more than they're doing here on Earth, kind of thing. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a techie guy, but I keep thinking, I just know, just looking at the evolution of the phone and where we've come from a flip phone 15, 20 years ago to what we're carrying around in our pockets today. Yeah. I'm thinking, these data centers aren't here for long. So if you don't like them, we'll cut them up into apartments and we'll make obtainable houses. We'll do something with them.
Well, yeah, I think that
put some windows in them.
The AI stuff is just, it's tremendous. It really is. But probably 15 years ago, the way that people thought about data centers was there would be several very large data centers. But then you would have data centers that were the size of like a shipping container, maybe a little bigger, that were spread out through the whole area so that you could bring services to people on phones or laptops faster. Mm-hmm. Well, that never worked. Mm-hmm. That was never a thing. That was never. I think, 5G probably killed stuff like that. But, and, now we just have these huge centralized data centers that are, full of chips and whatnot.
Well, I think I heard Ian say one time, he was talking about it. He said, well, if you think the building is a blight, wait till you see the transmission lines. They've defeated, because that's where the real blight's going to come in. How do you get the power to these things, and how do you get the power out of them?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're lucky. They built a bunch of them out there by the bypass because they have transmission lines out there.
They can handle it.
Yeah. And I mean, they have these giant switching stations. Hell, they must be an acre full of transformers and all sorts of stuff. And, you know, there's just no way to make that look pretty.
Yeah.
I think the city's done a reasonable job of siting their data centers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're in commercial areas. You know, I don't know how much noise the one over in Wellington makes, but that might be a bit of a problem. But these over here by the funeral home and whatnot, I mean, that's a commercial area.
Yeah.
I think it's perfect.
Yeah.
Anyways, man.
Yeah.
I think we've killed it.
Oh my goodness.
All right, Kenny. Thanks for coming on.
Andy, thank you. This has been great.